All right, Steve, we're going live in 2 seconds. Hey, everybody, it's Morris Lilienthal with another edition of the Mo Show Live. Really excited about today's guest. Today's guest is Stephen Black. Stephen has been a friend of mine for several years now. I've gotten to know him right out of law school, and Stephen is doing a lot of great things locally in our community here in Alabama, and now he's expanded his reach with his nonprofit and his group, and I'm really excited to share that with everybody. What I want to remind everybody is if you would, please like and share our post so we can get some exposure for Impact America and for all the great work they're doing in the community. And I would appreciate it if you would, if you've got questions. Again, the show's live right now, so feel free to log in below the video and leave questions or comments, and we'll try to get to those as we go. But let me introduce you to today's guest. Stephen Black is the grandson of former U.S. Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black. Stephen grew up in New Mexico. After a lot of controversial decisions at the time, civil rights decisions that his grandfather made, his family moved to New Mexico. Stephen is a University of Pennsylvania graduate, magna cum laude. I couldn't tell you what that is because I didn't get it. He's a Yale Law grad, and I guess kind of like what I've said once before when I've introduced Stephen, that he has kind of heard Mama calling, like Bear Bryant once said, that even though he didn't really grow up here, felt a yearning to come back to Alabama and get entrenched in our community here. And so he did. He went into private practice with the law firm of Maynard Cooper and Gale based out of Birmingham, and did that for about 3 years, I believe. And then after that, he went into starting this nonprofit called Impact. At the time, I believe it was Impact Alabama, and now it has morphed and changed into Impact America. Stephen is the president and chairman of the board at Impact America. He's also a professor at the University of Alabama and the director of the Ethics and Social Responsibility. Stephen, it's my pleasure to have you today. Thanks so much for being here, and sorry about the technical difficulties when we were getting started there.
That's fine. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so great. Well, I really wanted to have you on. I've had you come and speak at Rotary Clubs before, and just been really touched by the great work that Impact is doing. Your basis and what you're doing is all around community service and giving back and helping others. And I thought before we really dived into Impact, I'm just curious, I don't know that I've ever really asked you this, but where does that come from? Where does that drive or passion for you to help others and do come from?
Well, it really comes from sort of a growing nerdy anxiety over what happens to a country with now more than 320 million people within our borders, who statistically every year for the last 40 years, fewer Americans have any personal connection with anyone unlike themselves. We've been continuing to segment and segregate ourselves away from people that are unlike our families across the country, whether you're raising children in urban neighborhoods or rural communities or the suburbs. Fewer and fewer Americans have any personal connections to stories and cultures and ideas and issues unlike their own. And I'm not unique in saying I think that's just poisonous to empathy. I think it's bad for compassion. It makes us less innovative. It makes us less creative. It makes this less of a joint enterprise, this state and this nation. And I think there are a lot of people in higher education that feel powerfully that universities have a special role to play in helping young people sort of further deepen their understanding of ethics and further add to what it means to be an ethical, obligated adult in America. And I just love the idea of connecting with universities and junior colleges across Alabama and now in some states around us to give bigger platforms for students to be involved in communities that often are different than the ones they've grown up in, and in a way to make a difference, but also just have human connections so they can understand how many similarities they have with families that are unlike themselves, as opposed to just think about the differences.
Yeah. One of the things I've heard you talk about, when you kind of address this issue and your passion for that is kind of the urbanization of America, that a lot of times young people end up growing up with people just like themselves. They don't interact with other people and get the sense that there is some sense of, connection with these people that if they would just spend some time with them, they have a lot of similarities and how they could learn from others and educate others along those lines. And I think that's kind of what you're speaking to.
I think that's right. And I think the other side of this is if you just take as a workforce the idea of full-time college students, there's a huge untapped potential for making this by college students. And universities all over the country are involving students in a lot of initiatives. And it's not like our initiatives are the only important ones or the only great ones. It's just one sort of solid example of a consistent growth of providing a valuable service using college students who are supervised by recent college graduates. We have a relationship with AmeriCorps, sort of like Teach for AmeriCorps or an organization called City Year. We have almost 80 people on staff now in 4 states. And
wow.
We have a high-tech vision care initiative that I know you know about. We screen thousands and thousands of lower-income preschool children, middle-income preschool children all over North Alabama and the rest of the state, and where about 10% of them fail, and we and our partners help coordinate their follow-up care. And it's something we now do better in the Deep South than any region of the country, and the entire thing is executed by people under the age of 22.
Yeah, well, that brings us right into everything. So, before we I wanted to dive into the kind of the main 4 initiatives that you have, so you can kind of spread the word about those and let people know at its core what Impact's currently doing. But tell everybody how the organizational foundation setup is. I mean, who's running these great initiatives that we're going to be talking about? Who's the boots on the ground that's making these things happen?
Well, we have what we sort of call the leadership team in each of the states. This started in Alabama 13 years ago. We have 61 people on staff in Alabama, and almost all of them are based in Birmingham. And it's a truly statewide initiative. We work in all 67 counties. And there's a leadership team who have all come through what we call the core year, which is a year of service right out of college. And they've been elevated and agreed to stay on longer than that. And some of them have worked for us for 3 years, and some for 4 years, and some for 5 years. But the main workforce is a group of 22-year-olds who are right out of college who commit to 1 full year of full-time service for literally $1,000 a month. So they're not even making minimum wage, and they're just exhausting themselves, covering our entire state, reaching tens of thousands of children and participating in the other initiatives we have. And that's sort of the engine of this work. And so now we have a staff of 11 in Memphis, which will grow to 13 in August. We have 9 staff members in Greenville, South Carolina that work across South Carolina. We have 5 in Tallahassee, Florida that go across the Panhandle to Pensacola. And it's really rewarding work.
And these are young students that aren't, the bottom of the barrel that can't find a job, right, Stephen? I mean, these are some of the creme de la creme people that you're using to push forth your mission, right? I mean, I've heard you talk about some of the students that are working with Impact, and it's pretty amazing at the level of quality of students you're getting.
These are very talented college graduates, and a lot of them, want to take a year or 2 before they go to law school or medical school or business school. And we just provide them with a platform for them to, use their talents and effort and their passion to make a difference.
Yeah, well, that's great. And what I'd like to do, you already kind of touched on the first one, but I think, as I understood when Impact Alabama had gotten started and done, and it may have changed some now, but there were really 4 main initiatives, and I think it really probably started with the first one. But I'd like to kind of share with our audience a little bit about the initiatives that Impact America has and the mission that it's kind of putting forth with each of these initiatives, and give them some of the success stories that you've done so far. But tell us about Focus First, what that is, and you've kind of started on that path, but tell us how it got started and what you do with that initiative, what the students are doing with that initiative.
Well, that's a high-tech vision care initiative where we utilize it's pretty incredible technology. Now they're $7,000 portable cameras that accurately detect the vision of a child in about 5 seconds. And we use those and partner with hundreds of child care providers, now thousands across the state and other states in the South. And we go prioritizing lower income communities, but most children, even in middle income areas, have not had a vision screening very early. And we just know factually that 10% of children by the age of 2 have a vision problem. And there's really not a state in the country that comprehensively provides vision care before kids get into public school, because it's a hassle and it's a lot cheaper if you wait till they're older. It's easier to line them all up in first grade. And because it's so much more valuable to go when they're young, we make that the mission of this work. And the year we're completing right now, we're about to get to 48,000 children in Alabama in all 67 counties. And it's a pretty impressive initiative. And our young people, they drive all over the whole region getting to these kids.
Well, and I can tell you, when you first started this, it hadn't even registered with me to get my young son at the time checked. You just don't think about it. And one point is to think about is children don't know if at that age, at the tender age of 2 or 3, if they have a vision problem. They don't know what good vision versus bad vision is. So I think it's so important to have them screened. And I'm sure, if you're finding approximately 10% of children, that's a really big impact of, those children that may now can go get corrective treatment to help them. Tell us about what happens if you find, the 10% of kids that you're screening. What are you finding most often, and what about follow-up care for these kids?
Well, that's a really important part of this. We've never had an interest in just screening and letting a parent know there's a problem without helping to get to the solution. We have an incredible partner. It's actually a separate nonprofit that's also operates out of Birmingham that has grown to other states as we have, called Sight Savers. And they provide the follow-up care. They provide the logistical support for the families of the 10% who fail. And it starts with a phone call and a letter, and they help coordinate appointments with optometrists in the area or ophthalmologists if they need something more serious. They help with transportation if needed. They schedule appointments, just work together as a team to help make it as easy as we can on the parents of the children who have failed the screening to get glasses or to get whatever they need to be able to see as well as medically possible by the time they start kindergarten.
Yeah, well, those years, 2 to 5 years old, the pre-K years are so informative for children for developing learning and, reading skill sets, letters, colors, shapes. And if they can't see well and they're not able to do it, I've got to know that puts them at a developmental disadvantage when they're starting kindergarten and pre-K.
I think that's exactly right. And because of this cool technology, for the country not to prioritize this literally is just a matter of will. It's just an ethical decision whether or not it matters enough to us to go provide this for children. And I think we just had an ongoing conversation with thousands of college students and hundreds of college graduates that have just risen to the challenge, and they'll spend, a small season of their life just to go handle this problem for the next generation of preschoolers in their area.
Right. And the thing is too, no matter your viewpoint on politics or not, you're helping these children now by screening them so they're not falling behind in school and not requiring additional services that they may not need because it's just a vision problem. And you're also maybe preventing some future health issue later on that can't be cured maybe in their teen years or later years that could be cured while their eyes are still developing.
That's exactly right.
Well, one other thing, I just looked at some stats before earlier today on y'all's website. I saw it's over, and this may be for all of the regions, but it looked like 2015 to 16, that the Focus First campaign screened over 63,000 children. It looks like around 6,400, almost 6,500 had vision problems. So right on the 10% mark. It's just amazing that you've been able to take, portable cameras and run out to a daycare in rural Greene County. And I can tell folks that are not familiar with Greene County, there are places that aren't on maps down there that you're probably going to daycares at, and you're making a difference in those child's lives. Tell us a little bit. We just got through with tax season last month, and I know that one of the other big initiatives is called Save First. Tell everybody what Save First is and what it does.
Yeah, that's the other big one. It's the same staff. It's the same group of talented college graduates who spends their entire fall providing vision care. The Vision Care Initiative shuts down during December, January, February, and part of March. And that whole crew of college graduates goes through about 200 hours of tax training and gets certified as advanced volunteer tax preparers. It's a partnership with the IRS. And we spend a lot of time recruiting college students and training them at what's called a basic level. It's about 8 hours of training. It makes us less innovative and advanced supervises those students. And we end up helping thousands of families. And the goal is to help lower income working families who qualify for the earned income tax credit, help them receive that tax credit in full rather than go pay a commercial preparer what now literally is on average $400 a tax return that lower income working Americans are paying to a lot of times fly by night commercial tax preparers that are not even telling them how much they're charging them. $400 is a huge amount of money to throw away for something that our staff and our students under our staff supervision can do for free in about 45 minutes.
That's unbelievable that it's $400. I mean, I don't mind sharing that I didn't pay that much to have my CPA do my taxes this year. Maybe she's kept me a deal, but that certainly seems like an outrageous number. And as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but these folks and we see them all, and they're probably mainly in strip malls, the ones that you're talking about are popping up during tax season in low income areas. But these folks, they're not standardized or regulated, are they? The tax preparers that you're kind of trying to help people get away from.
No, there are only about 5 states in the country that have any oversight at all over this industry. These are not CPAs. They're not enrolled agents. They're not certified by anybody. I mean, literally in Alabama, you have to get a license and sign up with the state if you want to open a hair salon. But if you want to open a tax preparation shop and charge hundreds of dollars and really get families into a lot of trouble sometimes when they make terrible mistakes, and a lot of times the commercial tax preparers don't even sign the tax form at the bottom.
Right.
There's no oversight. There's no licensing requirement. It's really sort of the underbelly of an industry that only preys on low-income working adults. And this is a really important alternative, and it's a great experience for our students who work at the sites to sit at a table and learn the details of families who are living paycheck to paycheck. Some of them are, working 2 or 3 jobs, and it's a really valuable experience for the students to help out, and it makes them have a much greater appreciation for how hard people work at and near the poverty line. And I think it's a powerful kind of ethical connector across class for regions. And we have a very busy, successful tax site in Huntsville that's a partnership with United Way and UAH. And we have a large number of UAH students and faculty that help with that. And so we literally get to 1,400 families in one room in Huntsville in tax season. It's a pretty remarkable thing to watch.
And and that brings up a good point that I thought I want to try to emphasize and let you kind of talk on a little bit with the Focus First and with Save First. How are you connecting? Are you connecting? Is Impact America connecting with bringing in students from other universities, or how are they reaching out to their local students here at UAH or their people at UAB? Kind of how are you reaching out with getting people in the field?
Yeah, we work with over 20 universities and colleges around Alabama. We go to the campuses and we don't charge them anything, and we just meet with their administration and find faculty that are interested, and we train students on their campuses, and we schedule them and supervise them doing the work. And it's a great model, and it's a replenishing supply of valuable labor to do the work, and also a really important educational experience for the students as they participate.
Yeah. Well, in terms of getting the word out, do you just have local advertisers in terms of the Save First campaign? How do you spread the word out that you guys are out there so people don't fall prey to these tax preparers and then know that you guys are an option?
Well, we spend about 5 months on advertising and marketing and partnering with companies to distribute information to their lower wage employees. We have media partnerships. We have a TV partner. CBS affiliate in Huntsville is a great partner of ours. And we partner with all of the daycare centers that we do the Vision Care Initiative. They hand the information out to all of their families before tax season. And we work with churches, and schools are a huge partner of ours. The city schools in Huntsville distribute materials, and there's no wrong place to spread the information. And we always have more. We have more capacity. Even this year, we could have seen more families. It's always a challenge. The biggest challenge we face is when a family sees it first, they just think it's a scam. It just feels too good to be true. People have a hard time believing there's no catch to this. And so that's why it's so helpful to get more and more community partners spreading the word for us, because they help us with communicate the legitimacy of this, that in fact, this is entirely nonprofit, it's educational, it's a commitment from universities in the area, and you can trust it.
Yeah, well, it's free. We'll do free tax preparation. As they say, sometimes it sounds too good to be true, but it is actually true here. And I'd like to just briefly mention just some numbers, just to give our viewers some perspective on at least what you guys are doing. According to y'all's website, last year in 2016, you prepared almost 10,600 tax returns and saved or had $20.4 million in returns and saved over $4.2 million in tax preparation costs. That's pretty strong, Stephen.
That's a pretty good 12-week period for a bunch of 22-year-olds, isn't it?
That's impressive. And kids that are willing to take that much tax preparation training, and they're all doing it for $1,000 a month. I mean, that's unreal. I'd love to just briefly touch on the other two initiatives, if you can tell us a little bit about those. And I know they may be more localized a little bit, but Speak First and College First, if you can just briefly give us an overview of those two.
Well, Speak First is an all-star debate team and a college preparation initiative. That's just localized to Birmingham, but that's just another really rewarding initiative. And we engage young people. A lot of debate coaches from around the country graduate from college and come to Birmingham to coach the team. And that's been very successful. And we have an advanced placement initiative that now is operating in Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, where we work with lower income high school students who are about to enroll in an advanced place math or science course. And we put them through an intensive summer month of June initiative to get ready for that course, just to have a better chance to be prepared to succeed in college. It's using the same staff, the same kind of model. But the two biggest ones we've talked about are the tax initiative and the vision care initiative. And they're the ones that have grown now to Tennessee and South Carolina and Florida.
And I guess I'm just curious. So you've been doing this, you said 13 years?
13 years.
Yeah. I mean, in those years, are you hearing back from a lot of the students that were participating in the first 3 to 5 years and how they're doing in their careers, or have they launched or been more involved in community organizations and outreach? Just curious as to what you've heard back from prior participants.
Well, I think overall, and it's not just limited to our organization. I think just culturally, we want to continue to support normalizing what most people call a gap year experience, normalizing the idea that really talented, motivated, smart college graduates should commit at least 1 year of their life to making a difference for other people and take themselves off of their own personal track of ambition for at least 1 year. And I'd like to think we're part of that growing national story. And I think, there's a lot of research that suggests, bigger than us, that experiences like this have a lifetime impact on people. And really, there's no magic recipe. It's just understanding human nature. The more you can personally connect people to other human beings in a deliberate eye contact way, it impresses on people certain values. I mean, that affects them. That's the good side of human nature. People feel compassion and empathy for human beings that they connect to at a personal level. And I think we all just need to be aware of how to continue to grow those opportunities when technology and the way people are living are sort of going in the other direction. We need to be very deliberate about how to create spaces and opportunities for people to connect across boundaries and across lines of division.
Yeah, well, that's a great point, and that kind of comes full circle to what we were saying at the beginning, which is that we because everybody seems to want to have the house in the suburbs and be affluent in doing, and then we kind of ostracize ourselves and are separated from our full community, and we don't realize that there are other people out there that, while they may be a little bit different in some respects or another, we have a lot in common, and we have a lot that we can do to help each other. And I'm assuming, I know with my community service and the things that I do, that it certainly sounds to say that you always hear this saying, but I really do get so much out of it when I feel like I'm, trying to do goodwill to others, I get so much back, whether it's volunteering at school or doing with the March of Dimes, things that I'm passionate about and doing in the community. And I know that you and the staff members and the students, I bet, feel the same way.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. Well, a couple of other things I'd like to hit on here before we wrap up is, I know with any nonprofit, one of the things is trying to raise funds. So, how do you guys raise funds to run Focus First and to run Save First? How are you guys doing that? Do you have a community support, business support? And I'd love for you to touch on the Brightest Company, the trivia competition. I think that's such a cool concept that you guys did.
Well, all of the above. Like most nonprofits, we raise money from foundations and corporations, and we have some federal support through AmeriCorps. Because some of the AmeriCorps funding for those 22-year-olds comes from the federal government, which has continued to enjoy bipartisan support, and I think that's a really valuable. It's just a really valuable initiative. It's sort of like a domestic version of the Peace Corps, and we receive a lot of individual contributions, and all of it is very valuable. And partly because of the specificity of our work, it's very easy for us to show to donors exactly where their money is going. And exactly how to measure how many children we're reaching and what the effect is and how many families we're serving in the tax initiative and the debate initiative. And we also have an annual event that we've had in different cities. That's a team trivia competition that you know of.
Yeah.
And each team contributes a $1,000 entry fee. And then in addition to raising money for our organization through the entry fees, each team also plays for their own separate favorite nonprofit. And the winning team at the end of the night, their favorite charity, wins $10,000. And you all have come close to beating Bradley Arent, but I think they've beaten you consistently.
I think they have a ringer. I can tell you, everybody, that this is some of the toughest trivia out there. I mean, it's got to come to some kind of quirky sports question or food question. I might know it, but man, it is some tough trivia. But certainly for a good cause. Well, anything else that, you really, in terms of your message, Impact America's message, that you really want people to know that we hadn't touched on, or if there's anything else in terms that you would leave everybody with today?
I think that's it. I mean, we've always had a lot of great support and love being in North Alabama. And, I love seeing the number of young, talented professionals grow in Huntsville, and people are proud to call that area home. And we just like being part of that story. We like being part of why Huntsville and that region is a good place to live. And part of it is because area college students and recent graduates care about children being able to see before they go to school, and they care enough to give some Saturdays up during the winter to help families get their taxes done without being taken advantage of. And I think it all just goes into the same story of wanting our communities to be livable and successful and connecting for all different kinds of hardworking Alabama families.
Yeah. Well, if somebody is interested in maybe either making a donation, or if somebody is interested, has a student that may be interested in volunteering or applying for a year, what's the best way for them to reach out to Impact to do that?
I think just to go to our website, Impact America, and if anyone wants to contribute, you can designate where you want it to go. I mean, obviously, if you're giving money in Alabama, it all stays in Alabama. It's a separate bank account, it's separate initiatives, and same with the volunteers. It's easy to find where you can sign up to volunteer or to receive newsletters or stay connected with us. Anything.
Okay. Well, what I'll do.
Time for me.
Yeah, well, what I'll do, everybody, is after the show's over today, at the bottom of the video, I'll load in your website and information where people can find more information about everything. And I think you guys also have an active Facebook page, and I think it's at Impact America. And so if you want to follow a little bit about what's going on with them on a weekly or monthly basis, please like and share their Facebook page. And please like and share this video so we can get the word out about Impact America. Stephen has really worked tirelessly for the last 13 years, along with his staff, and now really grown his staff to really make a difference. And it's amazing how someone can take a thought and grow it from literally nothing to something, to the numbers and the size that we're talking about today. Stephen, thank you so much for your time and your friendship and continued success with Impact America.
Thank you so much, Morris. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.